Hi, beautiful souls. If you don't know me, I'm Deanna, and I'm going to forgo any titles because this entire thing that you're about to hear is strictly me. All of the titles that I've given myself over the years, those aren't present here. It is stripped down, raw Deanna that you're about to witness. And this is my plant ceremony experience. I attended a 3-day retreat in the mountains of Tennessee. It was the most divine experience I have ever had in my life. 2 days of ayahuasca, 1 day of Kambo. And this is my experience from start to finish. And really there is no finish because I feel like I'm still in it. Yeah. Here it is. Just a quick note. When I initially recorded this, when I started to, the intention was to record this for myself and then translate it into text so I could read it and process it from the beginning. And then mid-recording, it turned into something else. And I just saw myself sharing this. So there is some background noise and you will hear my turn signal, but just ride it out if you can. Okay, here we go. I love you. On night 1, I really thought there were going to be visuals. Just really an experience where I was kind of out of my body in a sense, which is interesting. Like, I really wasn't sure how I was going to remember anything given the fact that I was going to leave my body. This was all the expectation that I had. I was surprised to experience none of that. It really just like opened my heart space. She put me in this state of like receptivity, and I just had to allow the thoughts to come to the forefront and feel. But I realized that night that I didn't know how to do that. I always switch to observer and say, okay, well, I am not my thoughts, so I'm just going to observe right now. But in switching to observer, I don't actually feel those emotions. I just watch them. That's the whole point. This whole human experience, the whole point is to feel. We have this great gift to feel these emotions so deeply, and more often than not we choose to not feel them because it's too intense. But the time to feel them is literally now. That was my big lesson of night 1, along with just feeling expanded. I was in a really large bedroom with a king bed, and I closed my eyes and I thought to myself, I don't feel safe. I am too vulnerable in this open space. It's a new space. I don't feel safe. And I just felt Aya like wash over me. And the message was, because you only feel safe in smallness, expand yourself, allow yourself to be big, take up space. So I just imagined my energy like little feelers, just expanding and then expanding more and more until I was touching every single wall while in that central space of the room. And just allowing myself to be big, and to take up space and feel safe in that. Just absorbing that safety that lies in expansion. And I really feel like that was the first time I had ever felt that, experienced that. So that was really, really beautiful. That morning after, at night one, I was sitting by the fire with the women, and the one woman comes down and she says, oh, I slept okay. I mean, there's like a pea cover on my bed, and the crinkle is just not the best for like sensory, so she was really struggling with the sound. And my first instinct is to say, oh, well, you can share my bed, I just want to help. But I didn't want her to be in my bed, and I still said it. And the night before, Leslie says, if there's anything you don't want to do not say yes. So I offer her to share my bed with me, and then I realize, oh, I don't want that. So I say, oh, well, I snore really loud. Just to like turn her off of that if she was, leaning more towards accepting that offer. And we kind of left it as she didn't say yes or no. And then Leslie offers to make me tea and with coffee, because I was thinking I wanted to try like a mixture. She brings that out and I take a sip, and I'm thinking to myself, this is terrible. And she was like, do you like it? And I was like, yes. And the night before, we were beating this drum, and the woman next to me, she's hitting the drum, and when she's finished, she hands the stick to me and she says, your turn. And I didn't want to do it, but I still did it. And so I'm sitting there and I'm thinking of these three things, and I'm like, gosh, like the people pleaser came out full force. I didn't want to do any of these things, and I knew that if I didn't say something, this is all I was going to be thinking about, and kind of shaming myself for it, And so I stop everyone and I go, okay, I have to say something. And everyone stops and looks at me, and I said, I don't want you to sleep in my bed. I was only trying to fix you. I didn't like the tea. It tastes like shit. And I didn't want to hit that drum last night. And I felt so much better. And I mean, it's such a safe space with these women that I knew it was okay. It was okay to work through that and to say it because I was thinking it. And what a lesson for me to take with me, that I get to pause from now on. Because when I did those three things, immediately after, I thought to myself, why did I do that? Why did I say that? I didn't want that. So now I get to pause before taking action, before opening my mouth. Am I people pleasing? Am I speaking my truth? Because if I'm not speaking my truth, that's the thought I'm going to choose, is the truth and the love. Whether it's love for myself or love for the person that I'm speaking to. But I come first. And it was a really profound realization. And it felt so good to say how I was feeling. And not only that, but to also be received with love. And like a celebration that I said exactly how I was feeling. So that was really incredible. Night 2, I really felt my emotions and allowed myself to feel things I had been pushing down for years and years and years. And when they came up, my first instinct was to push them back down and move on to something else I could work on. I mean, I'm a firm believer that anytime we feel an emotion, it's coming up to be met and felt and loved, so it can release in some way. So I got to feel that. Really, it was just an acceptance of my dad passing. There was a part of me that thought somehow he had been taken out. There's no way he could have taken his own life, because I knew him. I thought, a part of me just did not want to accept that he passed by his own hand. And I really had that realization that morning when I was sharing by the fire. A lot of the women there, their fathers had also passed over. And I said, does anyone else have the dream where, your dad comes in and you're like, oh my gosh, thank God you're here. You've been gone for so long. So you're very much aware that he has crossed over, but he has come back to life, and it's like, please don't leave again. It's like this desperate feeling of just don't go. I had a realization in that moment that I didn't accept his death. And so night 2 with Aya, we sat with her grandmother ayahuasca, and that thought came up. I had also experienced when I was in a hospital in North Carolina. Just a quick note while I'm editing this hospital stay happened about 6 years ago. Ever since then, and then my dad's passing that involved a weapon, a gun specifically, anytime I would hear a gunshot, I wouldn't think. There were no thoughts that would happen, but my body would immediately react and I would start sobbing. Like, there was no time in between the gunshot to me thinking, oh my gosh, all of this happened, let me cry. My body was just like, I really think it was a form of like PTSD, but I don't know. I'm not certified medically to say that, but that's what it felt like to me, to have such a physical reaction to something without even consciously thinking about it. And so that I was sitting there and I was feeling so angry, just all the anger I've felt in my life. And I started like rhythmically pounding my legs lightly. I would pound 4 times and feel that vibration come up from my legs, through my torso, my heart, my throat, up through my third eye, and up out the top of my head. And then I would sit in that release, and then I would do it again and again and again and again. And I tell that backstory about my dad and the hospital because after I had done that a couple times with my legs, the fireworks start going off in the distance and it sounds like gunshots. And all of that came up. My dad, the hospital. And when that shooting happened at the hospital, I never allowed myself to feel. I was on so many drugs before and after the hospital. This was a time in my life where I avoided emotion like the plague. I didn't know how to feel because I had been numb for so long. The cries that came out of me were something that I've never heard before. Even after my dad passed, there were some cries that I let out that I had never heard those sounds before. But this night was something totally different. I cried, and it's like they came from the depths of my soul. Like everything that I had felt around those situations that I still had yet to meet, it all came up, and it all came up at once. And I looked into the fire and I said to myself, I'm safe to feel. And it was this even bigger release. And Leslie came over and did energy work on me. And yeah, then soon after that, I was sitting there and just enjoying feeling emotion. I'm a very emotional person. Like, I feel deeply, but it's not typically my own emotions. It's always been others' emotions. So to sit in my own was very personal. That's the best way I can put it. Really, I feel like my lesson from that night, and also my ancestors had visited me at one point. I knew there were 6 of them, and they all felt very feminine, very much a woman energy. And they said, like, you've never been alone. We've always been with you. We've always been here, and you never will be alone. And that was really comforting. And the cries that came out of me upon realizing that they were all there, and they've always been there, and they'll always be there, it was like this whimper. Like, I felt so grateful that if at any point in my life I felt alone, I wasn't. So I really feel like the takeaway from night 2 was that it is such a gift to feel deeply, and for so long I have felt the emotions of everyone around me and avoided my own, because how exhausting to feel everyone else's emotions. I'd rather not feel my own on top of all of that. But I now see it as a gift. And while I do get to observe myself feel, I also get to feel simultaneously. And when those emotions come up, I get to meet them with love and fully feel them, rather than shoving them down into dark corners to resurface, to be shoved back down again. They are very welcome and very much a part of me, and I'm grateful, truly grateful. On day 3 was the most profound, truly the most profound. I had a big realization the morning after the Kambo ceremony. I took a shower and I was thinking to myself, I always used to say, oh, I only get along with boys. I only get along with men. Like, I am not a girl's girl. I don't get along with women. And it was only because I had been hurt by women, and I would in turn hurt women because it was like this protection mechanism, like this defense mechanism. And until like within these last 5 years where I really have been working with mainly women, just, it's the most beautiful spaces, the safest spaces I've ever been in my entire life. We understand each other on this level that no one could possibly understand. Like, women holding women is the most beautiful freaking thing I've ever witnessed or ever been a part of. I realized in that moment that who I was when I thought that I got along better with men, I was only showing them the masked version of myself. The version of myself that I thought was easier to digest, that everyone would like, that no one would have a negative thing to say about. And that wasn't me. That was the version of me that had mask after mask after mask after mask piled onto my face and my soul, so you couldn't see me. So I was safe to be who I thought you wanted me to be, and you couldn't actually hurt me. And each time I peel off these layers of masks that I have compiled onto myself, I'm more and more me, and I feel safer to be me because I love me. And it's like standing in this power of who I am. And it's so freeing. It's so gentle and expansive to walk through life as who you actually are, and not who you've been told to be or molded yourself to be based on who you thought you had to be to keep yourself safe. It is such a freeing thing to do for you, to know that we're not alone, ever. Day 3. Here I thought all the work was done. We pretty much got the bulk of it. We don't need to carry on. But day 3 was the Kambo ceremony. The first application was 6 dots, 6 gates from a feminine female frog. And we were to choose between our feminine left leg or our masculine right leg. Did we want all 6 on one, or did we want to split it up in any way? And I chose all 6 on my right masculine leg. Didn't even think about it. It just felt correct. And so the feminine frog was administered, and I had to pee so bad. So we were to drink a full 32-ounce thing of water. We hadn't eaten since the night before, just so our stomach was empty, because what this medicine does is it like flushes out your lymphatic system, and you 9 times out of 10 purge it by throwing up. And all 5 of us, none of us threw up. It was very interesting. But so this was administered, the female frog, and I had to pee so bad. All I was thinking of was that I had to pee, and then that like need turned into anger. I was so mad. I felt like this anger in my womb space, like I just had to pee. Like, and all I'm thinking is, we have to sit here for 30 minutes, I'm gonna die. Like, it was one of those situations where I had to pee so bad. So I opened my eyes and like I'm raging. And I like mouthed to her, because I didn't want to disrupt the other women. I mouthed to her, I have to pee. And she was like, okay, yeah, please go. And I was like, okay. So I go to the bathroom, and I come back, and I'm feeling peaceful. She felt called to administer 2 more dots, gates, from a male frog that she has previously worked with. So she asks which leg, and I chose, again, the same leg. So I now have 8 gates on one, just my masculine leg. As soon as that one is administered, I mean, it was maybe 30 seconds. I immediately feel this fire, like, come up from my legs. The same way when I was pounding on my thighs, it was that, like, I felt it gradually move up my body to the top of my head. But it was, when I say a fire, I'm not exaggerating. It was so hot. And I immediately wanted to like stop it, because how uncomfortable. So instead I like sat in that discomfort and just embraced it. And I was sitting up, and I like leaned back a bit and just like relaxed, and I felt like my dad was holding me. But it wasn't, you know how when you close your eyes and you feel someone walk into the room, you know it's them because their energy is like their signature. Well, it wasn't like the dad that I knew on this earth. It was more like the dad I connect with, like who he is after he's passed. You know, he's pure love. He is not the same energy he was while on this earth. While still sort of similar, his energy when he was holding me was like so much amplified, higher. It was like pure divine masculine. And he's holding me, and I just felt so safe, held and loved. And I really embraced every single millisecond of that. And I love that I can always think of that and go back there, because that feeling will never leave me, ever. And so after he was holding me, I felt the sun beam on the back of my head. We were all sitting outside, and it was a rainy day and cloudy, so the fact that the sun was out, I was so grateful. So I turned around and had my eyes closed, and I just soaked up that sun and the sounds of the birds and the leaves and the trees, like all of these beautiful sounds. And I just felt the love of everyone around me, and I just sat there and I cried, just so incredibly grateful that I got to experience this, that I was sitting in one of the most profound moments of my entire life, and it was happening right then. And I just sat in that gratitude and love and peace, so thankful that I could be there. And we all came out of it, and I opened my eyes, and Leslie asked how I was feeling, and I just said, so good, I'm so grateful. And she said, your dad was with you that whole time. And I said, I know. He was holding me, I know. And you would think this is really the biggest part for me came after this, of the whole experience, the grand finale, if you will. I was journaling and reflecting on the Kambo ceremony, and I realized that I never allowed myself to be held by my dad like that when he was alive. I always felt like somehow he did my mom wrong, like he hurt her. I never allowed myself to be held by him because, you know, my mom and dad divorced when I was 3. I always viewed the situation, now I feel like I heard things as well along the way, but my perception was that he hurt my mom and in turn hurt me, but like I didn't want to let him get close enough for the chance to hurt me too. He moved to South Carolina when I was in 6th grade, and there was this feeling of, you know, he was choosing his other family over me. And that wasn't the case, but that was how little 12-year-old Deanna felt. I never let him hold me in a masculine way, in a fatherly way, because it didn't feel safe. So to experience that was so incredibly special. And I'll always be so grateful for that. Because even though he's passed on, like, I'm still here on earth and I still got to experience that. And I'm so grateful. After this realization, we all come together to share our experience, and someone else is sharing how she thinks she chose everything on her masculine side because she didn't want her mom to have any. And it was like all of these light bulbs went off at the same time. And I was like, holy shit. Because that's exactly what I did. I came into this experience with one of the main intentions being that I wanted to work on the relationship with my mom. We have a beautiful relationship. It is very open, but I am angry with her a lot of the time. And a lot of the time she doesn't even know it. But I hold a lot of anger around that relationship. You know, it was always her. She basically raised me. So it was like I had the anger of towards my mom and my dad. It was just amplified towards her because she was the one. I have this realization that I 1,000,000,000% chose my right side in avoidance because I didn't want to visit what I was holding around that, around the relationship with my mom. And so then I thought, wow, even in the experience where the female frog was administered, I avoided, I felt the anger and still avoided, went to the bathroom, came back, and then had the masculine frog experience. Crazy. We all share, and I said to Leslie, you know, what do I do? Because this was my main intention in coming here, and I didn't do it. I didn't visit anything around my mom, and I feel like I can't leave here until I do, basically. And she says, well, you know, I can sense the anger in what you're sharing. It's like if you feel called to write a letter to your mom. Everything you're angry about, all of the anger from your entire life. Anything you couldn't say to her face, write it down. And then she says, after the letter, read it to her. Not her, but her higher self. So she goes, after you read it to her higher self, just rage. Have a rage session. Scream, cry, stomp on the ground. And all I'm thinking is, if I go home, I'm not going to be able to. Because, you know, I live in a duplex where there's so many people. I just don't feel safe enough to allow myself to scream and rage. It just won't happen. I said, so is it okay, like, if I go outside tonight and do this by myself? And she's like, well, why don't we just do it now? Is anyone else open to it? And everyone else said yes, but then somehow, like, slowly trickled out of the room, and it was just me. So everyone's, like, close by doing their own thing, and here I am, like, furiously writing my letter. And I was honestly shocked. I never had to stop and think. 4 pages front and back of everything I'm angry about in that relationship, whether it was her fault or not. I mean, to see what I was holding on to was really eye-opening. And I called in versions of myself, my 14-year-old, my 18-year-old, my 21-year-old. I allowed them to write as well. What were they holding on to? And I called in her higher self. You know, this is just the pure love version of her soul or spirit. And I read the letter to her, and I sobbed the whole time. And I got up, and Leslie said, release it. And, you know, I'm surrounded by everyone doing their own thing. I didn't know how. How do I just do this? And I just kept saying, I don't know how. And she's like, release it. I'm like, I don't know how. And I screamed so loud. And that felt like my permission slip. I did it once, do it again. I did it again. I did it again. I did it again. And each scream like went deeper and deeper and deeper. And I cried so hard. And I just let it go. And we sat down. And then there were 3 black bears outside the window. A mom and her 2 babies. It was so cool. And after that, I sat back down and had her higher self in front of me and my 14, 18, and 21-year-old. And we just looked at her and we saw her for her soul, which is her pure self. And all of the lessons that she taught me, by all of those things that I was angry about, they were all lessons. And I felt that. And I felt so grateful for everything that I experienced, because it all taught me so much. And I now get to pass those lessons on without the anger, without my daughter having to experience anger to learn them. And what a fucking gift. I'm so grateful. I shared all of this with my best friend Stephanie, who, we got each other on a soul level, and I share all of this with her, and she, at the end, she's like, I'm celebrating you for all that you did on this retreat. I don't really remember all she said, but I remember how it felt. And I felt her words come into my heart. And like this just warmness just cover my body like a blanket. Like her love. And I realized, out of the million times she has celebrated me, that was the first time I received it. All of this release this weekend and epiphanies and realizations opened my heart in a way that I could never put into words. But receiving that love from her and experiencing it for the first time, given how many times she has showered me in love and celebrations before that moment, was cold hard proof of all of the work I did in the days leading up to that conversation. And I'm just so grateful. This was by far the most incredible experience I have ever had in my life. And it's like so much more is possible. I feel safe to be seen. I feel safe to be misunderstood. I feel safe to be me, to be an unmasked version of myself. I feel safe, period. And I'm so grateful. I honestly don't know if I will share these recordings. I really started this for myself. And spoiler alert, she shares them. We'll see what I decide to do with them, but... Oh, you just share them to the world. That's all. Nothing scary or anything. Whoever is listening to this, even if it's myself, I mean, we're all the same anyways. I love you. Another big takeaway was all of these women, we are all from very different walks of life. And this isn't the first experience with women I've attended, but it's the same in this regard. All of us on the outside looking in are very different. We all do different things in our day-to-day. We live in very different places. Our lives just look very different. Yet everything that we experienced and worked through was all the same on some level. And that just goes to show you that you can think that you're so different from someone, but we're not. We're all the same. We are all just humans living this experience, working through our shit, and finding joy in the little things when we can. Life is just so precious, and I'm so grateful that I get to experience it, and I get to meet the most incredible people and just experience their love. Like, truly, I am so grateful. If any of this resonated with you, just know that I see you and I love you, and you are downright incredible. I love you so much.